we tried to get that money for your book back in the day. So
yeah, I mean, that was a brave attempt. I don't know nowadays if we would try again, it probably would work a little bit better.
Yeah, well, we're gonna do something eventually, I'm sure.
All right, we're live.
Excellent.
Nice. I was just posting a behind the scenes photo to Instagram. So, but I think we probably need to kind of start talking about sauna instead of the production quality.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
I think so. Yes. So, welcome everyone. My name is Eero Kilpi, and I'm with the North American Sauna Society as much as I'm also with the upper bench. And we are so happy to have Lassi here with us again. And I thank you, our dear listeners and watchers. I think we are like something like 1,500 views at this point or something, and it seems that we are growing fast. So there's a lot of people who like sauna as we do. Risto, how do you feel today?
I feel okay, and I still like sauna. And I'm excited for the show. Hopefully we can give some difficult but useful questions for Lassi to answer.
Absolutely. Again, let me echo, thank you guys, everybody, for joining us today. This is kind of a special event. We're kind of doing a cross-platform event here with YouTube Live, and we're speaking with Lassi Liikkanen. Dr. Lassi is an Adjunct Professor of Human-centered Product Design at Aalto University in Finland. He has published over 80 peer-reviewed journal articles and conference proceedings in the field of product design, interactive technology, music psychology, and cognitive neuroscience, and naturally, sauna. At present, he works full-time in the Finnish industry around digital transformation and interaction design. As a hobby, he collects, creates, digitizes, and disseminates sauna-related knowledge through saunalogica.fi. His website ascended annually by over 400,000 Finnish visitors. In 2019, he authored a book, The Secrets of Finnish Sauna Design, available also in English since 2021. Lassi's ambition is to help improve the quality of Finnish-style saunas from Earth to Mars. To this end, his research focus on sauna technology and design, although he remains widely interested in history, culture, and the health aspects of sauna. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome in Lassi.
Thanks, Sam. I probably need to work on that bio in the future. It's going to take a little bit forever if I do anything more. So got it short. Yeah, there's kind of short greetings for Elon, but I'm not sure if ever in my lifetime we're going to see a sauna in Mars, but who knows? Maybe it will happen
someday
if the thing lifts up eventually. Cool, but now for now we're going to stick to the saunas that have been built on Earth because it's kind of more familiar terrain.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now, Lassi, we've already gotten a few questions here, through Reddit, and that's kind of where the AMA platform is really taken off as far as this Ask Me Anything. Today we are talking with Lassi about sauna, but it is an Ask Me Anything, so who knows what we'll get. Lassi, were there any questions posed prior to the recording here that caught your eye that you'd like to maybe start off with, or would you like to maybe just talk a little bit more generalities of sauna first?
Well, I think I was personally very happy to see that there were quite a lot of interesting and also kind of challenging questions already out there, and also a few which I won't be able to answer, which I have to admit straight from the start. For instance, maybe I'll pick this one up because I know that this beautiful panel that we have here today has been working several years already on the matter of trying to figure out what the Americans should do with sauna. And I have to tell you that I don't really have any kind of a ready-made formula that will make all Americans love the highest quality Finnish saunas. Unfortunately not, because I think it will take time. I mean, first of all, you need to get those saunas, at least few good saunas here and there, and get them kind of in the public awareness, and then it'll be quite slow ride. I mean, in the end, I mean, nowadays we in Finland, we enjoy the fact that we do have somewhere between 2 and 3 million saunas. So basically one for every other Finnish person. But of course, it hasn't been always like this. And how you end up in this kind of situation, I'm not even sure you should kind of aim for that kind of a high density of saunas, particularly nowadays in this kind of a ecological climate that we're living. But I think you can probably kind of still expect that better things will happen in the end. But it's kind of influencing what people think about the saunas, what they're willing to accept, and what they're willing to pay for. And it's not kind of a trivial matter. I don't really have any kind of solutions. I was in another conversation with some people over email. I was saying that in Finland, in the US, the problems are quite different in a way that in Finland we have at least, I'd say, 40 or 50 companies that produce different kind of small sauna cabins. I mean, we're talking like outside built, and this is a market for like 5.5 million people. So imagine that if you get like even 10% of Americans anyway interested in having sauna, what kind of market should there be in all of North America for sauna? I don't know what's going to how the figures would end up looking like, but I think there's definitely quite a lot of room to improve. And once you kind of get more people, more sort of, I believe that once you get more like a supply of different types of saunas, eventually people will start to kind of appreciate the kind of good or the mediocre or even bad ones. Sooner or later it will happen, but it's not like an overnight thing, because now particularly after the COVID and during the COVID, we saw a huge boost internationally towards the interest in the Finnish sauna. And that has, I think, been both good and bad, because when there's a lot of demand, you do generate some kind of supply. But unfortunately, there's no kind of guarantees that when things start to go kind of accelerate, that will they be accelerating straight towards the wall or toward like a pleasant highway. But it's a start. So I think I'd like to be quite an optimist that, for instance, there's so much huge potential and great conversations going on in Reddit, and people seem to kind of, at least from my perspective, there's not really much better conversation to be had in any Finnish forum. So I think, yeah, I believe things will turn out for the better, but it will take time. That's unfortunate, the fact. So anyone listening to this, just try to find out those few great, well-hidden saunas anywhere in your vicinity. I think there are a few of those locations, but I think Eero, Risto, and Sam will all together kind of try to help in upcoming years in order to reveal those hidden sauna hideaways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely so, and we are also working on the sauna ambassadorship project. So that's one of the ideas, that there's a local knowledge of good saunas that people would be interested in and spread the information.
Yeah, but let's please hit me with something, Sam. I'm not. It's probably better if you decide where we're going to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first questions that we got here was, let's see here. My question is about wood types and using hardwoods inside a sauna. I have read that the downside to using hardwood as interior cladding is that the walls will get hotter than softwood. But is this the only downside? I'm looking for a common local alternative to cedar or pine. I am in Australia, so there is no spruce, aspen, or any other European softwoods readily available, but we have many types of native hardwood eucalyptus varieties. And he goes on to say, if it is only heat that is the issue with hardwoods, then maybe it is possible to make a sauna where one doesn't touch the hardwood walls by using softwood only for the backrests and benches.
Yeah, that's a good question. And once more, I admit that I'm not kind of a world-renowned expert for different hardwood materials. But here I actually have one kind of anecdote to share with you. The starting point is basically that's the main kind of difference. And after all, the difference isn't that huge. I mean, you could basically try out how to work. Just take any type of wood that you would like to use in the sauna, put it in your kind of a kitchen oven, heat it up to like 250 Fahrenheit or something like that, take it out, and then see for yourself, not here, but smell for yourself and touch for yourself how it works out. Because now, particularly when we're talking about eucalyptus, one friend of mine was an expert working in Shanghai about 10 years ago. And he discovered that he decided to build the interior of some eucalyptus variety, which was very well available in China at that time, unlike a lot of the other more conventional sauna materials. And what happened is that everything seemed to be fine before firing up the heater for the first time. But once the sauna started heating up, you may know, at least I remember being both in Australia and somewhere in warmer parts of California during very kind of hot periods. And the eucalyptus, at least some varieties, may start to emit this kind of pretty strong odor. And instead of making this kind of nice, pleasant, barely noticeable flavor, the sauna was actually unusable at high temperatures. So I think that's it's important to understand the qualities of the wood you're planning to use under this kind of unusual temperatures, because it might because it's similar thing with like pine. We have that pine may contain a sap. And that's kind of a problematic property. So it's actually not an ideal wood in any way. But that's something that we kind of are aware of, or spruce, same thing. So we can kind of counter or take that into consideration. So for the different kind of eucalyptus woods, I don't really know which one of them might be safe to use in sauna, but at least I wouldn't kind of order a truckload of the stuff before I have some kind of a try it. But I think here you can kind of do this kind of home experimentation pretty easily and figure out if you're headed towards trouble using this type of wood.
Yeah, I like that. Being able to just use your home stove, and hey, is it going to be too hot to touch or is it not?
Yeah, that's a great approach. I love those really practical things that you can do. You could, you might put it on a cookie sheet so you don't have resin dropping in the bottom of your stove. And then, I would like to test this just side by side, different pieces of wood. What would you set it, around sauna temperature, and then like smell the different woods or feel the different woods?
Yeah, and definitely kind of push it a little bit further than you are planning to go, because that the sauna environment is definitely not, it doesn't have like one single temperature. I mean, we like to talk about, say, like 200 Fahrenheit, but it's not, I mean, that doesn't represent the whole sauna. There are, depending on which type of heater you're using, but there are definitely going to be hotspots that go beyond that, 10%, 15%, maybe. So it's better, particularly if you do this kind of experiment, just safely run it all the way, like at least 40-50% beyond what you're going to use eventually. You can just kind of start it slowly, take it out, and at a first try, sniff it around, spray some water on it. If it doesn't smell anything, just continue. Don't go beyond like what would it be, 600 Fahrenheit, or it'll catch fire. I'm sure of that. But once you stay within like up to like something like 300 Fahrenheit, you're probably able to determine for yourself if it's going to be acting out nicely or not in the sauna environment. So that's my tip. Unfortunately, the selection of the woods is so much dependent on where you're at. So it's better to kind of, if no one really in the area knows anything about the sauna use, you probably need to kind of find out for yourself before. It's still probably quite easier than exporting stuff from, say, Europe or North America. Yeah, let's do something else.
All right. So the next question, let's see here. We've got one from a few days ago on Reddit. And by all means, anyone that is listening, anybody that's viewing in here on YouTube, feel free to post your questions either in the chat below on YouTube, or if you'd like to post your questions on the Reddit thread, you're more than welcome to do that as well. And we will try our best to get to all the questions today. The next question for Lassi is, have you read Trumpkin's notes? This article is referenced almost every day here on Reddit. I'd be interested in any disagreement you had with these guidelines. Example, your book recommends natural passive ventilation in standalone electric saunas, and Trumpkin's notes recommends mechanical ventilation. What are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, so there was at least 2 or 3 questions all baked into one. But I'll start from the first one as far as I could understand what it was. Yeah, I've had a Trumpkin's notes have been quite interesting, growing collection of sauna tidbits, and I think I was just browsing it through just last evening to figure out where is it going right now. I think Walker has done a pretty huge work with putting all the information up there. I think he doesn't really need to add up much, and then he'll be ready to print it out as a 200-page book. So what I'm saying is that there's quite a lot of information in there. Also a lot of references to my own work, and I don't think it's kind of now good use of anyone's time right now to go through each and every detail. But let's pick on this one particular question, which is regarding, as far as I understood, electrically heated standalone sauna cabins or this kind of facilities. Yeah, so first of all, kind of the choice between natural ventilation and mechanically driven ventilation, I personally, I think this now depends on kind of where you're coming from in general, and what is your kind of ideal about how you should construct stuff. I personally try to think so that I would prefer having systems built that are simple as possible, avoid any kind of mechanical parts, moving parts, consumption of electricity, anything that might be kind of easily broken or needs to be replaced. Because first of all, I think I personally kind of feel very strongly about the kind of matters of sauna and sustainability, because I definitely want to see that this type of tradition in all its glorious forms will continue to go on. And therefore, I would like to kind of make sure that at least in all the construction advice that I give and design advice, I try to kind of go towards the best possible solution, not only in terms of how it will feel for the user, but also that it's kind of sustainable and doesn't kind of create or minimizes different kind of losses. Now, when it comes to electrically heated saunas, yeah, it's not, then things tend to get a little bit more complicated, because unlike wood burning saunas, which are kind of luxury that not everyone is able to have, with electrically heated saunas, we have more demanding situations, and there are definitely instances where I would always recommend mechanical ventilation. This is particularly when we have the sauna is somewhere inside another building, whereas it's going to be quite impossible to get rid of the extra moisture any other way than through kind of mechanical ventilation, without kind of causing all kind of problems in the surrounding areas. But now, when we're talking about independent sauna buildings or cabins or whatever you want to call them, there, for the sake of simplicity, I would definitely at least look very carefully if we can build that ventilation system with natural ventilation alone. It's not easy. It has different types of issues, depending a lot on what type of, for instance, what type of foundation you can use in the sauna, where it's actually located, what sort of needs do you have for like let's call isolation. It's not isolation. Insulation, that's the word. Yeah. So I think there are a lot of factors to be taken into consideration, but at least because it can be made to work, after all, in Finland, we have this kind of very long-term, I mean, the kind of longest surviving sauna tradition that we have is with the so-called smoke saunas. The smoke saunas are not really kind of huge hit outside Finland, well, maybe except for the Baltics. But I think kind of deep down, the smoke saunas and their kind of single wood-fired sauna stoves are actually not much different from an electric heater. And we have been able successfully to operate this kind of smoke saunas for hundreds and hundreds of years. So it's definitely not an impossible task in order to get this kind of electric sauna with passive heating, with electric heating working. But of course, it requires a little bit more thought in the design phase on how you're going to do it. And there might be there might be kind of instances where that's not advisable. But as a first, based on these kind of reasons, mostly the sustainability and simplicity part for the building, I think you should definitely at least try to figure out if it can be done that way. That's probably kind of without really knowing. I didn't kind of read fully what was behind Walker's suggestion, but I think that's how I see it.
I have a follow-up question about that, Lassi. That's an interesting comparison between smoke saunas and electric saunas. Is that because when the smoke sauna is being used, it's not being heated, so that the kiwas or the heater that it's not actively pulling in fresh air?
Yeah. So because the smoke sauna heater is basically the heat storage heater unit, so it doesn't work quite the same way as electric heater does. On the other hand, actually the electric heater in a way has a slight advantage in a way that it's while it's turned on, it'll basically increase the convection inside the sauna. So although I don't really think that the difference is probably not going to be notable, because the smoke sauna heater in typical like working condition, it's extremely hot on the inside. So it'll basically, well, what happens is what happens with this kind of smoke sauna type of heater is that whenever you if it has some kind of closed lid on the top, when you open it up, you immediately see quite a strong convective current, or feel it, and you see that the temperature of the sauna starts to rise up, if this kind of lid exists in the first place. So, but basically we're dealing with similar kind of situation with electric heaters. So it's definitely possible to do that. But as I said, different circumstances might call for different solutions. And of course, the reason why we're using this kind of, I actually have had a few slides in here as well. The reason why we are using this recommendation, which I think this is from my book, The Adapted Image, from old Finnish study. I think Walker is kind of strongly leaning towards this old recommendation, which is based on fully mechanical ventilation. And this type of system doesn't really work. You have to do some other type of solution in order to kind of get by the problems.
Yeah, and I guess the one other difference I might see between the smoke sauna and the standard electric sauna is the significant difference in rock and wood mass, especially if it's a log smoke sauna. So, and the more mass you have capturing the heat, the more ability you're able to have for ventilation. An old Finn once told me he likes a drafty sauna.
yeah, that's definitely that can be an issue, particularly a little bit depending on what type of electric heater we're talking about. But if you have like something like, well, I know there's been a lot of discussion on the Hume drop heater, which has become fashionable in some locations and notorious in others. I think that's kind of a nice example of this kind of design, a small design electric heater, which has kind of limited stone capacity. That basically means that because one of the most simple ways to do passive ventilation or natural ventilation is that you open up a hole somewhere high up, and then you just let the air naturally go out. which is, of course, results in noticeable heat loss. But if you have a lot of capacity, if there's a lot of heat stored inside the sauna, you don't probably need, you don't actually realize it very quickly. So it's not a big deal. I mean, you lose some löyly on the way, but it's quite negligible. But then again, if you are on the other extreme, where you have this kind of relatively low powered heater with little amount of stones, then you will probably run into problems of actually feeling the heat loss much quicker. So yeah, there are definitely differences. I think this is kind of probably kind of blasphemy to even talk about electric heaters and smoke sauna heaters in the same day, but that already happened.
Do I read you right if I say that you should be like prepared to tweak your sauna depending on how it ends up being? If you can feel that you don't have that airflow, so you have to so there's a chance that even though you do everything right, it doesn't end up perfect, and then you have to tweak. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's like the basic principle with natural ventilation overall. That it's not like unlike the mechanical ventilation, which works then almost like 100% of the time similarly. And at best, you might even have some adjustability if you can have like a single fan controlling the whole sauna air. So that's, of course, probably the best case scenario if you like high tech. But then, I mean, with natural ventilation, you're much more dependent on the different kind of conditions that you have. For instance, like my own sauna cabin, I just realized this weekend, now that it's getting once more quite warm here in Finland too, I should probably kind of, I have like a floorboards that I take off when the summer or the warmer period begins. I realized I would need to do that next time because it's only like simple things such as the kind of changing temperature differential between the indoor outdoor air clearly affects the kind of my perception of the ventilation that I get in my my sauna cabin, which basically is even though I have this kind of a wood burning heater, but because the wood burning heater is being fed from the other room, not inside the sauna, so it actually doesn't influence the sauna ventilation, or it minimally influences the sauna ventilation. Actually, not for the better, because the air from the sauna room actually goes to the wrong direction. But anyways, so yeah.
No, absolutely, Lassi. Yeah, I like how you said that. I have a wood burning heater as well, and really the only thing that I can control is the tray on the bottom. Is it open, cracked, or closed, and to really kind of regulate temperature. I do plan on putting maybe some kind of a baffle in my smokestack to maybe try to play with that a little bit more, but I can feel the air from under I have just a small gap under my door, and I can feel that rushing if I open it wide up, and I can really kind of get that sweet spot, about 70% open is kind of the sweet spot on my stove. But yeah, we talked a little bit. We were talking about rock mass, and I saw a question here that I actually wanted to ask myself. And we have kind of talked about this in the past too. But Lee and Jill down in New Zealand, welcome. For those of us who live in North America, so maybe they're snowbirds, but they're saying that they had to pay over $100 for only 20 kilos of sauna stoves. Do you think it's worth it to try to find your own wild rocks, or is it not worth the risk? So what are some things that maybe people should look out for if they're trying to source their own sauna stones?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think first of all, I really feel bad about the current situation that the Finnish sauna stones, when they get exported or imported, which way you look at it, and find their way to North America, the price is at least 10 times what it was when they left this country. So what I'm really hoping also in the long term is that someone really should start digging, not for the gold, but for at least for some kind of usable sauna stones also in North American soil, and then the problem would be solved quite quickly, I think. I'm quite confident that somewhere in that huge continent there's some kind of stone hiding which could be used for sauna purposes. And I mean, I know that around the Great Lakes area, for several hundreds of years, the Finnish immigrants and their kind of children and their grandchildren have been successfully sauna bathing with the rocks found somewhere around lakes and rivers. So I think the problem can be solved. Now, when it comes then, and of course, I have to say that the period in Finland also, when we have had like basically two lines of producing commercial sauna stones. First is like post Second World War, when people probably like after the Second World War, several things happened. First of all, in Finland, people started using both like electric heaters and continuous wood burning heaters. This basically, both of these things were kind of transitions towards sauna culture that was more like fast paced, and I think, and also more like urban instead of rural. And I think both of these things kind of drove, first of all, we started developing this kind of sauna heater industry. We had like, I think probably close to 100 or even if more, very small companies producing sauna heaters. And at some point in like 50s, 60s, some companies started commercially producing also sauna stones. And of course, probably at that time, people were thinking that, why should I kind of go to the shop or the hardware store and get a box of sauna stones, but I can collect them myself from the bottom of the river or somewhere else? But then we go decades, go further, and what happens is that eventually everyone's using commercially produced natural stones. Well, or almost everyone, because at some point, like during late 1990s, in Finland, people started also using or creating, there's one brand called Kerkes, and founded by this basically a ceramic artist, Teppo Hurme. He started producing these like ceramic stones. So they are actually not stones. They are basically just ceramic, and kind of designing them and producing them in that way that they can be used inside sauna heaters. So and that was the kind of second phase. Now, the actual kind of different qualities of stone that we have in Finland have been changing over the decades. And particularly, we used to have like basically the best natural sauna stone is in Finland called peridotite or peridotiitti. I actually at some point tried to kind of map out the actual Finnish or this kind of geological terms into English, but I didn't quite finish with that thing. So please forgive me if some of the names don't go quite right. Anyhow, so why I'm kind of bringing this up is that, so we used to have this kind of basically perfect sauna stone, which was durable, heavy, and also actually quite, it also kind of conducted heat quite well. All these three properties are quite essential for good sauna stones. Otherwise, if they're not durable, they will break down, which happens with granite quite quickly. They have to be kind of heavy or dense in order to store a lot of heat. And finally, what was the third thing? I'm not losing myself. Anyhow, oh yeah, they have to conduct heat too, because there would be basically a scenario if they're poor conductors, even if they capture a lot of energy, they don't kind of necessarily work too well in the sauna environment, or you get different type of steam. Well, everyone who has been in sauna with this kind of a steel drum or any other heater that contains a lot of steel or any other metal, you'll know that if you kind of punch a gallon of water on top of the metal, it'll bring out quite interesting steam experience. Not necessarily one that you'd like, but something will definitely happen. So getting back, so why did we give up this like a very special and very nicely working peridotite? Well, the story goes. This is, by the way, not kind of any official story, but this is basically what I've heard, because I was also wondering the same myself. Is that in Finland we also used to at some point started producing this basically natural material called asbestos. And nowadays, probably everyone who hears asbestos kind of scares and walks away. But the asbestos was one of the kind of best things to come out of Earth for certain Finnish communities still back in 1960s. And unfortunately, even though the kind of greatest asbestos deposits were in separate locations, but it turned out that in a lot of locations in Finland where they were mining for this great sauna rock, peridotite, they were also discovering traces of asbestos. And then there was actually a study quite late in 1990s where like master's thesis, and that actually proved that if your sauna stones, for instance, contain asbestos, it will kind of little by little transfer in sauna air, and it can be picked up by like different type of measurements. So that basically means that that was probably one of the reasons why the kind of commercial use of peridotite then declined. And that's kind of one of the kind of if now this is not, I don't think anyone who's picking up stones from the river or lakeside shouldn't probably be too concerned about the asbestos thing. But here in Finland, it was one of the things that still the rocks that are produced in Finland, they go through quality control, so that every now and then the factory will send out a batch of those rocks that they're currently mining, because they have different deposits, and they will be kind of analyzed for the content of or the presence of asbestos. Just trying to make sure that the deposits stay clean, so that they don't kind of dig into the wrong location. This is a little bit like the Mines of Moria kind of scenario, that you might go wrong at some point. But anyhow, if you're trying to kind of just find the rocks for your own personal enjoyment, please do. I think there are actually not very good or like 100% foolproof methods to find out the best rocks that you can use. But I think generally, I would probably start by exposing them at least to some kind of trial by fire. So heat them up really good somewhere outside your sauna heater for the first time. If they crack, pop, or start emitting flames or any other weird gases or smell funny, you probably shouldn't put them into your sauna heater. Other than that, I think you should be just fine. What you can just expect that the kind of commercially produced sauna stones will probably have much bigger lifespan than once you pick up yourself. But I mean, there are, I was just talking to some guy from Northern California last week. I was pointing out to him that there's actually a company founded by one Finnish guy who's been extracting this kind of volcanic rocks from the Mount Shasta and then exporting them to Finland, making them as expensive as the Finnish stones that are being imported into the US.
Supply and demand. Yeah, I like your point there, Lassi. You know, give these tests a quote unquote dry run in a fire. We used to go camping up on the Boundary Waters and create little makeshift saunas, and we would heat up rocks and then put them under a tent or something like that. And yeah, every once in a while you'd find a rock or two that probably shouldn't come in there with you. So we've always told people to shy away from granite or quartz, anything that is going to be very porous, allowing water to get into it, because really what you're worried about there is that rapid expansion of gas and exploding that rock. So yeah, give it a whirl. There are plenty of guides online and notes, for sourcing local rocks. But next question here came from Silverworks. He wanted to just kind of keep it simple and wanted to pick Lassi's brain about the best sauna you've ever been in.
Oh man, I actually get this question quite a lot, also from the Finnish media whenever there's kind of any longer interview. It's also a very difficult question in the sense that it always changes a little bit over time. And now I think it's actually very difficult to say what is the kind of the best sauna ever, because I think a lot of the experiences are quite different, and also it's also, I mean, now I'm going to help myself and refer to this kind of model that I have in my book, is that it's never the same, even in the same sauna, it's not quite the same. But currently, kind of one of my I'll instead say that one of my favorite saunas today is that I try to go about every week. The Finnish Sauna Society hosts their kind of sauna center for members in Helsinki area, and they have different types of wood burning, or how to say, like they're basically all single wood fired heaters there, and smoke saunas and non-smoke saunas. I basically personally kind of enjoy mostly one sauna, which is kind of designated as quiet sauna, which I think I personally kind of important thing for me, at least when I'm kind of starting out my sauna evening or afternoon, as I usually do that, is to kind of have this kind of very meditational sauna moment, about 15 minutes, all along with my thoughts. And that sauna supports it perfectly. It's not too hot. It's hot enough, so it kind of takes definitely kind of captures your attention. And there's quite a minimal amount of steam, but there's definitely, even though it's not kind of a smoke sauna, it still has kind of very strong scent of the wood. Partially also because it's in next door to a smoke sauna, so there's actually some smoke probably every now and then going in there as well. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of nice saunas around there, but that's actually kind of my current favorite.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for answering that, Lassi. And then just a quick shout out to anybody watching. If you have a question for Lassi, well, feel free to put it down in the chat below, or you can post it on our Reddit page. Ask me anything with Lassi. The next question here comes from Nils, common name here. We've seen and talked to Nils a few times. He is asking about your thoughts regarding the barrel saunas, and in his opinion, does not believe that it is a true sauna because there is typically only one level of benching. What are your thoughts around that, Lassi?
Yeah, I kind of probably read your mind, or otherwise just skipped forward to the slide that kind of is very much relevant to the issues of the barrel sauna. In a way that, I mean, the barrel sauna, first of all, giving due credit, I think the good part about the barrel sauna is that it has this kind of round shaped or half, can you call it round? Maybe, let's call it round. Ceiling, which basically is very good for the particularly to distribute the steam. Unfortunately, the total kind of radius or diameter of the barrel is usually way too small in order to really kind of have enough vertical space, which basically means that, yeah, you usually kind of limit it to having only one single bench. And some of these barrels also are quite small, which is also kind of issue because some of the people will be kind of forced to sit very close to the heater. And when you get very close to the heater, you'll be having this kind of odd experience where your other part of your body is kind of getting too much radiant heat and burning up. Your other foot will probably feel cold because it's on the floor, which doesn't heat up at all. And then your head, well, you can guess that your head probably won't feel much better either. I mean, and then we also have the issue of variable construction quality. Now, I mean, I haven't actually, maybe for, which is probably good for my personal health, I haven't really seen the examples or experienced the examples of all American-made barrel saunas. I mean, we here in Finland, we've had the barrel saunas also for several decades. And I mean, some of them are quite okay. I mean, I think you can kind of achieve this kind of okay level if particularly in locations where, for instance, if you have a trailer and you just you have this kind of mobile sauna unit, which you go around different kind of nice locations, and then you're basically using the sauna only to kind of heat up when you dip into a lake or something like that. It can be quite okay. It's not going to be a great sauna anytime, but it can be kind of. I'm also kind of willing to accept saunas that are kind of built for a purpose, but I definitely wouldn't. The basic design has so many kind of shortcomings that I probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone who's seriously interested in having good sauna. But I think we also have them quite a lot in Finland for the fact that you can get them for very cheap. And unfortunately, also the Finnish consumers, even they might have higher standards for sauna overall, are sometimes kind of lured in by kind of attractive and maybe a little bit too affordable barrel saunas, which I mean, also they do also kind of fall apart in 10, 15 years quite easily if you don't kind of take very good care of them and maybe do some kind of extra things to kind of increase their longevity.
Excellent. Maybe to kind of talk a little bit more on this vein of maybe we'll kind of classify this as maybe non-traditional saunas. What do you think about tent saunas and these kind of pop-up tent version of saunas that people are taking hiking and camping? They might have a small, little wood stove that they put in there. What are your thoughts around that? And just how are people maybe how can people get a better experience out of them?
Yeah, I think I personally I wanted to try this kind of firsthand, and like more than a year ago, I was in possession of this kind of tent sauna combination from one Finnish manufacturer called Savotta for about 6 months, and I made a few trips with it, and I'd say that overall, my kind of impression is that, I mean, the tent saunas tend to have few strong points, pros, which are like, I think the biggest thing is that, as there's already mentioned about this, having this kind of drafty sauna with extremely good ventilation. That's something that you can achieve very easily with a tent sauna. You only have to kind of leave one of the flaps somewhat a little bit like open, and then you get fresh air all the time coming into the sauna. Because of course there's kind of hole in the ceiling, because you have to kind of have a little bit clearance for the flue, so for the pipe is to go through the ceiling. So there's definitely good air ventilation, no questions asked. But the problems on which are quite many, I think the biggest problem is that a lot of these tent sauna type things are usually they come with this mobile stove, and for the better part, I haven't really seen any really kind of usable, like truly usable stove. A lot of these are like extreme compromises between the portability and how they kind of burn. And I think they are, I wouldn't probably like to say this, but I think they, for the better part, they should be banned, because they kind of waste so much heat. They waste, I mean, there's a lot of like, whenever you have this kind of a flue pipe, which turns red, like 1 foot above the heater, that's like the first like bad sign that this heater doesn't really work the way it's supposed to work. And it's also kind of you also see quite a lot of like smoke coming out of those things. I think that's the biggest problem. So if you actually had like now we have this there's been this international campaign called Sauna Aid, which started last year March in order to deliver some like relief to Ukraine. And the first donation that we created was, or the campaign made, was that there was this kind of sauna tent, and that was equipped by a kind of reputable Finnish wood burning heater. And when you kind of put like a real wood burning heater in this tent, then you'll have your kind of chances to having actually workable and also somewhat like ecological, not a catastrophe, sauna are much better. I think that's really the case. But that's kind of biggest issue. Then I personally also found that the kind of mobility of the tent saunas is slightly questionable. At least I was extremely happy when I returned my tent sauna, because I would personally find it much more kind of comfortable have this kind of trailer sauna if I want to have a mobile sauna unit, because it takes quite a lot of space. Even though the tent itself is you can basically just hang it on your back of your over the shoulder, not a big thing. But then all the other stuff that you also have to carry. I mean, if you like I was doing some testing over the winter, you can't really go pick up the stones from the riverbed when it's frozen and there's 0.5 meter of snow. No way. You actually have to have those stones with you if you want to have any kind of steam. So yeah, I think the portability of this tent saunas is kind of at least for me personally, an issue. If you have this kind of huge RV or a big yacht or something like that, maybe you can kind of permanently store the sauna somewhere wherever you go. But like I had a problem that I have in Finland we have these wagons which are quite popular, not kind of American thing. But I basically should be able to have like 5 adults in the car and then still some trunk. But if I took all my tent sauna with me, there was only space for the driver. It was full of all the stuff that you needed to have for this mobile sauna experience.
Yeah, you need a small army to lug this thing around. So
yeah, so I wasn't quite convinced. I mean, the moments that we had with this tent sauna on very nice lakesides were quite good, but the amount of effort that it really takes to kind of get it up and running, I'm not sure. I'm not willing to kind of. I have better things in my life to do with. So the next thing I'm going to try is this kind of real mobile sauna on a trailer or something like that.
Absolutely. Another question here comes from Reddit. A user is looking to build a sauna and is asking about sizing of a wood burning stove. Now they're saying that their sauna is going to be 10 cubic meters, and they're looking at either a heater that can go from 18 to 14 cubic meters or one from 10 to 25 cubic meters. So I think this really kind of brings up the question, should you get a bigger heater than what is maybe recommended for your size, or should you try to stay with the recommendation from the manufacturer?
Yeah, I think this is a quite classical question, because it always seems to be that most of the time the sauna that you are planning to build just happens to be in between those two kind of predetermined sizes that the manufacturer has. I'm not sure why is that, but it seems to be a recurring problem. Yeah, so now, when it comes to the heater, the bigger is not necessarily better, but it's quite an interesting kind of trade-off thinking about how much like power you need versus, for instance, how much stones you end up having. Now I think here we can see kind of there's probably a little bit of a difference between if you are talking about electrical wood burning heaters. But I think in this case, the person was asking particularly about wood burning heaters from Iki. I think it was like that. In that case, I think it's usually not, or the comparison easily becomes something a little bit like, not quite like apples and oranges, but it's not quite trivial in a way that if you take the bigger heater, will you also have a lot of more stones? If so, what will happen is that your heating time will probably increase, even though you basically have more thermal power. But it's also, if you have a lot of small stones, those stones will also need kind of extra fuel. So I think it's a kind of like a question of what kind of things you value more. Because if you have like a relatively lower powered heater, well, when it's still kind of in the range, it basically means that you'll just be heating the sauna up for a longer period of time, and then it'll be basically pretty much on the level of the more high-powered heater. Now, and then there's the depending on how much stones you have in the heater, because if you have a heater with huge stone capacity, you could basically say that once you've done with the heating, so that you could say that the both the sauna room and the heater or the stone volume have reached whatever this temperature you desire, it might be so that you don't really have to continue heating at all. You already have accumulated enough power in the pile of stones that you can kind of keep on going several hours. That now we're talking about something like probably over like 500 pounds or something like that of stone. So it will basically start working as like a single wood fire heater from that point on. But then if you don't have this luxury, if you have this kind of heater with less stone volume, then you basically need to keep on heating it while you go there. I think that's what we've mostly been used to. But now, then we actually run into a different category of questions, is that how will the heater behave after the point where you've kind of reached your goal temperature? Because the bigger heater you have, the more difficult it will be to kind of, or usually, I'm not sure if this might not apply to every appliance, but usually with the kind of more powerful heaters, you can't really operate the heater with this kind of a small batch of wood. You basically need to have quite a kind of substantial amount of wood they're burning, that it even keeps on burning in the first place. I think that's probably familiar to many of you. And now you can ask yourself that what will happen in the sauna. So if you kind of decided to get this kind of an overpowered heater, it might become quite impossible to prevent the sauna from overheating, or you may have to kind of open the door or window or something else in order to kind of let the excess heat out in order to keep the stones hot enough. And yeah, so so it's not unfortunately not quite a simple decision, because then on the other end, there might be this kind of situation where you once you reach the temperature, then you actually need to keep on feeding the heater quite a lot all the time in order to kind of maintain the rocks and the sauna at the desired temperature. So difficult trade-off. It's not kind of easy to give the any kind of conclusive answer without knowing what is your kind of what is your kind of a preference there. And I think a lot of people probably are building the very first sauna, so they don't really have experience from one or the other. And yeah. So unfortunately, I can't really give like a clear answer to this person who was asking the question, but I hope this kind of gives a little bit like things to think about, which way to go.
So can I ask you a question? I've as some people might know, I'm Finnish American, and I've been in this country for 25 years, which I keep telling people. And actually, the only person in this virtual room whom I have done some sauna with is Lassi. We haven't yet done any sauna together with Christopher or Sam. I think that I'm not exaggerating too much when I say that that about maybe I would say 80 to 90% of saunas in North America are sold because of the health benefits that people are seeking from them. And Lassi, how do you feel? You know, when we were growing up in Finland. By the way, I also do have a PhD from Aalto University. So that's we also share with Lassi. So when we were growing up, no, I don't think that anybody told us about the health benefits. We never did sauna because, or did we? Did we think that that was good for you? Was this that? And the reason before I let you answer is that that I have a feeling that you know we always compare, and it's kind of, you know, one you know far end to another far end, you know, Finland versus other countries when it comes to traditional sauna bathing that we've been talking about here. I think that my assumption is that sauna bathing is going to take off in North America for real. There already is a boom going, but it's going to really take off when we take the health benefits part, even though it's always there. But we take that away and we start talking about the social aspects and you know, the feeling good and everything. That do you feel the do you think that this would be the case? And I'm also asking this, you know, from Sam and Christopher as well.
Well, I think there were already two questions. I'll try to start with the first one. Yeah, I'd say definitely. I don't think that Finnish people have never kind of given too much consideration for any official kind of statements about the health or health benefits or the health risks that sauna may pose. Because historically speaking, Finland and Sweden have always been quite close. I mean, we're two neighboring countries. But and Finland was for a long period of time under the Swedish regime, and the Swedes at some point, like 18th and 19th century, tried to somewhat like eradicate or at least oppress the Finnish sauna culture, because there was a lot of discussion about among the Swedish medical experts that sauna must be bad for different aspects of health. But the Finnish people didn't listen. They kind of continued to do their sauna. Basically, the only country where then there was kind of strong, there's a very nice book written about the Russian sauna culture, which is definitely not kind of very pop thing at this time of year, but the book is still great, from Ethan Pollock. Without Pania, we would perish. And this gives a very nice history of what was going on in Russia, because in Russia, they actually made this kind of a very strong national health statement. So this was like, I think it was 19th century, the latter half, about how the sauna should be used in order to save the nation, or the banya. But that wasn't really going on in Finland. And I don't think it really ever was. I think that Finnish people, because of they had such a good access to sauna, have been, what I say, like naturally driven towards the immediate benefits of sauna when it comes kind of socializing with other people. Or, I mean, the sauna was such kind of a culturally important space in Finland for a very long time. And I don't really know what has kind of carried its magical temptation all through the different decades, because it certainly, like after the Second World War, it very quickly kind of lost its multifunctional, or the kind of biggest need disappeared. So it became more like more and more concentrated around hygiene, as well as some kind of well-being. I mean, because people do, all the people who have ever been to a good sauna, or at least, or most of them. I mean, not this may come as a shock to some listeners, but not everyone in Finland goes to sauna, even though we have saunas. But it's about like 90% of the people do. So, and everyone who's been to a good sauna can kind of testify that it definitely gives you some kind of very nice, nice kind of feeling an immediate kind of health benefits, at least when it comes to your both like physical and mental well-being. So no one has to tell you, no one has had to tell any Finnish people that you should go to sauna to feel better. It has, I think, it been quite natural. And I have to say that I don't think that definitely not all of these the saunas that people have been going to have been this kind of perfect Finnish saunas, but they have been good enough. Maybe some okay ones there as well.
Yeah, and whenever I get asked this question, which is quite frequent, what are the health benefits of sauna? I only really ever speak about the benefits that I've personally observed. It's helped with my sleep. It's helped with certain stretches that I should be doing, for injuries. And really, though, I really attribute it to it's a social experience. I have great conversations with my wife in the sauna. I sleep better, and it is a time for me to just put the phone away and reset and relax and reflect. Those are things that everybody should be doing. It doesn't matter if you're in a 200-degree room or not. Everybody needs to take a break once in a while from their phones, from their screens, and just connect on a more human level. So I think in that regard, yes, there are amazing benefits, but is it gonna cure everything? No. And especially when I have a beer and a cigar, I'm pretty sure I'm negating any sort of health benefits that I just gained.
Yeah. When we introduce people to sauna, we hardly ever mention the health aspects. It's more like just like a social get together. And then it'll usually be like maybe the second or third time they come over to sauna, they'll ask, and maybe they've done some Googling on their own, but they'll ask, is this good for you? And then we'll explain, some of the health benefits at that point. But we tell people, even if sauna was a little unhealthy, we do it for the enjoyment. We would still probably sauna, it'd just be like one of those things like bacon or cigars, and so you just showed a sauna book. So now I have a selfish question, a question that I want to ask you. So you wrote a wonderful book about sauna right here, which I've read and recommend to people. So that book aside, if you could only have two books on saunas in your library, I know that would be a sad state of affairs, but which two books would you keep?
Great question. Very difficult one to answer. I think there are a few good candidates. I mean, I have to go brag that I actually recently managed to get my personal copy of Mikkel Alan's Sweat from a local used book dealers for a very nice price too. But I still have to say that Mikkel's book, as great as it was, is actually now been kind of we have like a one more extensive book available, although only in Finnish. I'm not sure if it's going to someday appear also in some other languages, but it's let me see if I can spot it somewhere in my bookshelf. Oh, I can. It's probably I just recently moved in, and there's still some books to be uncovered. But there's got a book from a Finnish author called Heikki Lyytinen. He has written a book about like all sauna cultures of the world. And also he's got some like personal ambitions around linguistics. So he's also been exploring not only the history of different kind of sauna cultures, but also the kind of linguistic history of the different words around sauna. Because of course, all of the Finnish people would like to know whether the sauna was actually invented in Finland, even though nowadays the word sauna is kind of very commonplace around the world. And that comes from both Finnish or Estonian proto-languages. Anyhow, I think Heikki's book is probably the other one. So it's definitely not non-technical thing. Maybe I would pick some other technical book, but now we're in trouble trying to decide which one would it be. It probably would be there's kind of very I think one of the books that has mostly influenced myself is also Finnish, from a guy called Pekka Tommila, who actually is also not among us anymore, but he used to write still in 1980s and 1990s several books about the Finnish sauna design. I think those were quite useful when I was trying to kind of gain some perspective into Finnish sauna. I think those would probably be my bets. So I'm kind of I think this is kind of a nasty answer, because although my book recommendations are in Finnish, and well, the other author is still alive, so there's some kind of a hope that we might see this book coming out also in the English format someday, but let's see.
Wonderful. I was able to just recently meet an author who wrote Some Like It Hot, and I was able to listen to her speak about her book that she wrote, and it was a great great kind of how-to, and it had history, and it had, you know, just good general information. And I'll make sure that we can get all the links and anything that we've mentioned here. Hopefully we'll be able to post out in links below on this video, different links to our speaker Lassi's website, his book, The Secret of Finnish Sauna Design, as well as our podcast, The Upper Bench. And feel free to join us over on Reddit. We're coming now pretty much to an end here. We have just a few other different things that we'd like to talk about. One of the last questions here is a follow-up from Nick. Lassi, what stove? Let's see here. What stove would Lassi use in a saunaletta? Am I pronouncing that right? Like the one he reviewed. Leave it to the mod to decide if this is a very specific for the event. Which, you know what, we're gonna just see. Lassi, what stove, if you had to build, let's just make a list. If you had to pick a stove for your sauna build, which stove are you picking?
Well, I've actually very recently made my choices, but I think it's quite depends on tent sauna.
Yeah.
Oh, tent sauna. Well, for the tent sauna, I would probably go for something that's as efficient and powerful as possible, because that's what you're gonna need in order to kind of get through the drafty feeling and kind of get some heat into it. So I would probably, I'm not sure if I understood correctly that the person might have been referring to an article I recently made about this Finnish sydänkiuas and the Sudan hard stove. And they have this model, they had this kind of huge public sauna model, but they also have smaller versions of wood burning heaters, which are kind of characterized by extremely good efficiency, because they have different type of structure inside the heater, which are this kind of heat exchanger elements, which are much larger than most other wood burning heaters out there. I would probably choose this sydänkiuas. Now this is probably impossible for anyone to kind of pick up from how I say that. It's SYD. Oh yeah.
We'll get some links.
Dots, yeah, umlaut, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get some links to all these different things for our American audience that might be scratching their head right now, because they've probably only seen one or two different brands available to them. But it's refreshing to know that, you know, hey, there are a lot of different brands out there, and here at the Upper Bench and Lassi, you know, we're not trying to promote anything one over the other. You know, I've always said the best sauna that you have is the one that you have. Aero, Chris, any closing thoughts or questions for Lassi before we wrap up here?
I have a question. I've been honored to be with the North American Sauna Society. Now we're gonna turn 20 years old next spring, and I've had the privilege of meeting many very knowledgeable experts when it comes to saunas, and particularly, obviously, also here in North America. And there's this ongoing war, and it has been going. Actually, it is one of the reasons why we established ourselves, North American Saunas, is it because of the 20 years ago, particularly, the infrared cabins started coming to this marketplace, and we felt that that it was kind of hard because people still don't understand what a sauna is, and I've sort of, we've taken a stance that I just want to do traditional sauna bathing, and I just let all the flowers, flourish to bloom. So if you like your infrared cabin, if you like your steam shower, so do you have any any ideas how to help us, to end this war, and that's just people enjoy whatever they have and whatever they want?
Well, yeah, I think enjoy saunas, not war. I don't know. I mean, I find it's kind of curious. I know that there are some people in the North American soil who are more adamant on kind of the definition and very strict adherence to certain sauna standards, which could be laid out, and that's actually very funnily, it's also present here in Finland. I personally I'm a little bit more relaxed in that sense, that I actually do appreciate different kind of varieties of sauna. But then again, I do in my book, I have been quoting, or actually translated or retranslated, I guess, this kind of definition of sauna from the International Sauna Association, which is this kind of you can't really say a governing body, but at least it's been around for several decades, this kind of consortium of different sauna organizations around the world. And I think I kind of like their definition of sauna because it's inclusive enough. And it definitely makes kind of very clear distinction between, say, infrared cabins or steam rooms and saunas, because they are different. And ironically, of course, the infrared cabins, I mean, there's a lot of talk about, for instance, in marketing different types of infrared solutions, the health benefits are usually always on top, even though I don't think, if we look at kind of the research out there, the kind of hardest evidence for the kind of biggest health benefits there exists is found when we look at Finnish type of saunas, not the infrared cabins. No one can really tell you if you can kind of achieve similar type of benefits from frequently going to an infrared cabin that you can from Finnish sauna. And on the other hand, you can use your Finnish type of sauna as an infrared cabin. It's not 100% the same, but it's a lot of the same elements there if you don't ever use any water, which I think has been the trend anyway, somewhere in North America and somewhere else in the world, where the use of water has been banned in some cases.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Remember, folks, if you're at a local public sauna, you're at your gym, you're at your hotel, and there's a sign that says no water on the rocks, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. And I think an arrow beats this drum a lot, but I think we benefit, like we've talked about very technical questions today, which stove to use, which wood to use, but viewing sauna as a practice and as an experience, like where the sausage you cook is as important as the stove you get and the friends that you invite, to view it like full spectrum, that will help kind of guide us. Because if you have a rich and robust sauna practice with friends and food and a time to relax and maybe set in nature, and you experience that and sauna as that, then when it comes time to which sauna should I get, well, a tiny 2x4 infrared thing may not fit the bill if you want that same experience.
Excellent.
That's a good way to put it.
Risto, I couldn't have said it better myself. From all of us here, from the upper bench, from Lassi, from Reddit, from YouTube, to all corners of the sauna sphere. Please, thank you very much. Feel free to reach out to any and all of us with any of your sauna related questions, and we will do our best to get back to you. But as of for now, we're going to have to say goodbye, and we're going to close the stream out. But again, we will be back.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure really to have a once again great chat with you guys, and I think it's been a very fast-moving, almost 1.5 hours. I have to say that here in Finland, it's almost 11 p.m., so this is kind of late night show for me. But what better than be spending this late night hours with such a great company?
Thank you, Lassi.
so much.
Thank you.
Can't say enough. Thank you all.
Thanks. And see you in sauna, I hope.